G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it.
Welcome, everyone. Today I'm interviewing Adey, who is founder of SheMentors based in Melbourne, Australia. So thanks for your time, Ali.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
We've connected via Hala Abdul, who I did a podcast with Hala a few months ago, and she recommended we have a chat, and here we are. So to kick things off, tell us a little bit about your background and the business SheMentors.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Ali, founder of SheMentors. So we are a tech platform and community for professional women who share knowledge one-to-one. So we're not your typical mentoring program, as we were talking about off air just now. So we don't match you to one person for several months. Instead, we give our members instant access to hundreds of women all over Australia and New Zealand and our APAC region as well, actually, across a variety of different industries, skill sets. And we give you the opportunity to choose who you would like to meet each month and what you talk about. And this can be someone completely different every single month. So we call this the Mentor Hour. That's our flagship product. And it's designed to be sort of fun and flexible, low maintenance on busy schedules. So these are one-off mentoring sessions with women who can offer diverse perspectives across a range of different topics. So in Australia, the reason we kind of created this is that women are underrepresented in leadership roles. We're underpaid and we're underfunded. So if we just take Australia as an example, last year in 2023, female founders only got 4% of funding. And the gender pay gap here is sitting at 21.7%. So progress is really slow. So the idea of building this platform really is to make it easy for women to find each other and gain that support and knowledge that maybe they're not getting in their everyday businesses or in their careers.
It's a great model, and as you say, to support women around Australia and New Zealand, and particularly in business, helping them grow their business, no doubt. Is it the case that it's just not necessarily being mentored around business? It could be anything, like you said.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So we help business owners who are looking to grow their businesses to the next stage. We help organizations and women who work within, business units, hone their skills, get peer support, gain knowledge in different areas. And we also help women who are sort of between jobs. So maybe they're in business and they're looking to get back into the workplace or vice versa. And what we're seeing actually is that so many women are transitioning between roles. They're looking for different opportunities, and they need support to do that. So yes, you can gain access to many women across different topics, and talk not just about your professional lives, but also about your personal lives, your family, your relationships, having kids, balancing mindset, mental health, those types of things as well.
Yeah, no, awesome. Fantastic. Now, how does business make money?
So individuals can join and pay a monthly or an annual fee. And then we have organizations who join as well. So they'll onboard maybe like 10 or 15 women in that organization and they'll pay an annual fee. So it's billed through Stripe. Yeah, recurring revenue.
Yeah, nice. So how did the business start and when was that? So
it was our birthday this week. So we're in our year 5 of proper business. Before that, it was a meetup group. So it kind of started really when I moved to Australia from the UK, and I didn't have a professional network here. So I was working in a leadership role. I was managing a team. I was kind of informally mentoring them. But I needed that kind of support and guidance for myself. So the organization that I worked in, I loved it. So I was head of digital for 3 e-commerce brands. But obviously it's a male-dominated industry. Not many women are speaking at events. I was pretty much the only woman who would go to these events and sort of sit in the first row. And I really craved meeting other women in digital and in tech, but there weren't any in my organization. And so I was like, how do I like meet people here? And how do I get out and, grow my network and learn, how Australia sort of does business, if you like. And so I started a meetup group in Melbourne, and invited women to come along, share their stories, get up on stage. And over about 2 years, we had like hundreds of women coming to these events. And the meetup group grew to over 2,000 people. The event started to sell out. And there was this really like contagious energy with the women who came to these events because they were experiencing the same challenges that I was in my role. We were bonding over those shared experiences. We were being transparent about the struggles. And yeah, it was just this fantastic warm energy with these events. So I was working full time when this was happening. And it was literally just a meetup group so I could meet people, nothing else. But then we got feedback from people at these events that they wanted to continue the conversations between events. So they were asking me, Ali, what are you going to do with SheMentors? Like, we want more from it. And I was like, well, I've got this full-time job, so I've got like no intentions really of doing anything with this. But it all came to a head actually one day. So I had been working in this organization for a couple of years, growing revenue for the e-commerce brands, leading their team, doing really, great work, and I loved it. But I found out I was pregnant. And so I had a conversation with my boss and I went in and I remember this very well. So he was like sitting in his, big office with the big windows, swivel chair. And I was like, I went in there to negotiate a pay rise and flexible working. And at the end, I said to him, the reason I want these things is that I'm pregnant. And he sort of paused and he sort of pondered that for a few moments. And then I, sort of said to him, so I've done so well in this role and I've generated X amount of revenue for the business. And he sat there and he looked at me and he said, do you know what? You do deserve a pay rise, but I'm not going to give it to you because you're pregnant and you're leaving anyway to have a baby. And I was like, no, I'm not leaving to have a baby. I'm going to take some time off, probably like, 4 or 5 months and come back because I loved that role. And he laughed and he said, no, sorry, there's no way I'm going to give you a pay rise. You just told me you're pregnant. You're leaving. So we had this debate, if you like. And I was kind of arguing the case and saying, look, this is something I want to do. I've worked really hard for the business. And anyway, he wouldn't budge. And so a few days later, I resigned. I said to my team, who are all women, I can't work for someone who doesn't support women throughout the various stages of their life. This is one of the biggest reasons that women leave their roles and start their own businesses because their organizations don't support them. And I'd been hearing these stories because I was hosting these events on the side. And I was like, I can't believe this is happening to me as well. And I hear this time and time again. So I resigned from that job and SheMentors wasn't even a business. It was just this meetup at this point. But I was kind of fueled by that desire to sort of make a difference. And I thought, imagine if we could get all of those women who came to the events onto one digital platform and they're all available to share their knowledge. They could have helped me through that situation at that time, but I didn't have anyone to talk to about it. So that's kind of how SheMentors started. It's how I transitioned out of my, full-time job that I loved into starting the SheMentors business. Yeah.
Yeah, no, inspirational story. It's sort of definitely a sliding doors moment, right?
Oh, absolutely. I often think, what would have happened if I just gone back to that role? Would SheMentors be turned into anything? Probably not.
It is disappointing to, hear that story, and as you experience and talk to many other females, it's not uncommon. So, disappointed. I still think that sort of goes on, but anyway, it was to your advantage at the end, wasn't it? So
yeah.
And for all the females in your community, the fact that you've sort of put this together. So, well done to you.
Oh, thank you.
So, have you got some? I know you're sort of early in your business, essentially growth, and but have you got some sort of numbers you can share just to show the growth of the business over the last 5 years?
Yeah. So, as I said, the first couple of years weren't really a business, but then I think the first year we did about 45,000. The next it was 75,000, then 130,000. Then we plateaued for a year. I had a second child through that. So it kind of plateaued. but now we are on track for 240,000 this year. So we've seen, I wouldn't say it's fast growth, but it's been sustainable, self-funded growth over the last, 5 years. So yeah, I'm proud of where we've come from.
That's fantastic. And obviously with 2 young children as well, it can be a bit of a balancing act.
Yes, it really can. And when I first had Eva, because obviously I was pregnant when I started SheMentors, so that very first year in business, I was also looking after a newborn. So that was obviously a huge challenge. And I think this is what happens with lots of female founders. They go through these stages of growing a business while they're juggling parenthood often. So it can be slow growth when you don't have investment and funding. I actually did try and get investment when I was pregnant. And I was told by a potential investor that they would never invest in a single pregnant founder. And I thought, right, I can't do anything about being pregnant, but I could potentially get a co-founder. So I went away and I managed to talk someone into being my co-founder, Brendan Nicholas. We'd worked together in this previous role with the e-commerce brands. And so I was like, look, I've got this idea. I was heavily pregnant. I was like, I'd love you to help me build this tech platform. And luckily for me, he said yes. And so we got to work building that first iteration of the platform. But yeah, the revenue has definitely been slow. But I'm proud of it because it's just had to fit in around my life.
That's right. Yeah, it's all about priorities, isn't it? Have you got any sort of targets for, say, next financial year as far as revenue?
Yeah, I would love to double revenue again and go for 500,000.
Awesome.
The main reason for me in wanting to drive this revenue is building out the tech. So the more revenue that comes into the business, the more we can funnel it back into making this platform the best it can be. So I'm extremely purpose driven in that regard. And every, organization that joins us, every individual that joins us, we share with them that you're actually helping support the growth of this small startup, into building this really, fantastic platform for you. And they love that because they're part of the journey with us.
Yeah, that's great. Again, it's early days, but has there been a moment yet you feel like you'd exceeded so far?
Yeah, I think there was actually a moment. This was in the early days, actually, when I first validated the idea. When we ticked over to 100 customers, for me, that was amazing. I couldn't believe it. And at that time, we'd launched the SheMentors platform on Shopify because I just had an e-commerce background. And so on Shopify, when you get a sale, I'm sure your listeners will know, it'll go cha-ching, cha-ching every time you get paid. And I was sitting in the car driving to this camping trip. And I'd done this sort of launch in the early days, and we had 100 people join, and my phone was absolutely blowing up. And my partner was just like, what's going on? Is that another membership sale? I was like, yeah, people are actually joining it. And I just had this euphoric feeling of, oh my God, other people want to join. Other people see the mission and the values that we have. And it was amazing. I'll never forget that moment. I had to end up turning off the notifications for the time. So yeah, it was amazing. And I definitely felt like that. And I try and hold on to those little memories because I think you have to celebrate those moments throughout the years where you feel like excitement because, it won't always be like that.
Yeah, important to celebrate when they come along, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
What does success look like for you then?
Impact for us. With the SheMentors platform, I think because it was born out of my own sort of need. When I see other women gaining that support on the platform and being able to create that safe space for each other through mentoring, that makes me feel amazing. And we're booking now 200 mentor hours every single month on the platform, which is incredible. And the fact that they're all going off there and booking mentoring sessions with each other and supporting each other through various stages of business and career. And I see people take photos of themselves on Zoom or in person, and they use the hashtag mentor hour and they're posting across LinkedIn and Instagram. When I see that for me is incredible. That really defines sort of success and the impact that we're having.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. You mentioned providing a safe space. Can you just sort of elaborate what you mean there?
Yeah. So for lots of women, working in their own businesses, working in organizations, we do face those unique challenges, not getting funding, facing discrimination, not being heard, not having our voices kind of, heard and acknowledged within different organizations. So having a safe space for women to be able to share those experiences, not being judged in a one-to-one environment with another person who's been through something similar, can give you so much support. And it ends up building your confidence over time because you realize you're not the only one. It has happened to other people. And it gives you that courage to kind of keep going and when you've got that support. So I think that's been really key. Lots of the women who join us are either working on their own every day and they feel lonely and frustrated and they need growth opportunities, or they're sitting in workplaces, maybe in a male-dominated industry, and needing that support. And so when they book a mentor hour with someone else on the platform, they realize that, okay, I'm not on my own. And there's huge power in that. Yeah.
And I think that's right. It just shows the power of connection and belonging.
Yeah.
Which is a human sort of trait. But I think you've just a good example of creating that, as you say, safe space for that connection. So, is there one thing you could recommend to marketing a growing business?
Yes. So for SheMentors, it was live launching. So running Facebook ads to specific locations and driving them to a webinar where I would present the story of SheMentors, our mission, what we're all about. And then at the end of that presentation, we'd have, like a few hundred people on the call. I would invite people to join the membership. And then I would have sort of 10 days where the membership would be open. And so people would join on the call and then they'd have 10 days to convert and we'd send email follow-ups throughout those 10 days. So a few things I think work really well. Firstly, scarcity. People need a little bit of a nudge sometimes to convert.
Yep.
So if we get people to a live event and they get to meet me, hear the story of SheMentors, suddenly they're like, okay, so this is a mission. This is something I want to be involved in. And then they start to feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. So it's about aligning them to that mission. And then having the sort of 10 days cut-off period to join is really good because lots of people can sit on the fence for literally years being like, oh, I wonder whether I should join. I'm not sure if I'm ready. Whereas when you say to someone, the doors are closing tomorrow, get in now, come and join hundreds of women in this community. All of a sudden people are like, oh God, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to take the leap and I'm going to join. And we found that once we did that strategy where we got people involved, we got them to this live event, then they joined. Everybody that joined in that cohort joined together. So as you said before, they felt connected already. So they join the platform, they start building their profiles, they start giving hours and receiving hours from other people. And they're onboarded in this wonderful way because they feel part of the story. Previously, we've just left the membership open and people have trickled in throughout the months, but they haven't had that same sense of connection.
Mm.
And so that's been a really interesting way of marketing. And I think if anyone's listening who have communities, it's a really powerful way of getting people to connect with the founder story and get on board with the mission. And then they become massive advocates and ambassadors for the brand. So that's been really fantastic. And we still use that to this day. So the membership isn't always open. So we open and close it. We run launch events. And we did this strategically all over Australia. So we collected members in every major city and regional areas too, because lots of people in regional areas are like, I don't have anyone to connect with. I don't live in a big city. So we strategically did this. And then we launched in New Zealand with the same strategy. So Facebook ads to specific locations, launch events, getting people to join. And over time, it's just sort of snowballed now with people wanting to get in and they're on this wait list. So yes, it's been a really, really good way of getting people on board.
Yeah, no, great. As you say, some great outcomes and a good tip for those listening.
Yeah.
So funding your business, you mentioned earlier, essentially just reinvesting the profits, essentially bootstrapping the business. Is there been any other sort of sources of funding to grow?
No, Self-funded, bootstrapped, my tech co-founder and I building the platform in the early hours of the morning. We both have small kids. As I say, I think we potentially could have got funding in the past, but it's hard to get funding, as I bet you everybody listening will know. So we haven't. We've kind of done this ourselves. But I think the other flip side was that we wanted this to be a business that was flexible around our families. So we both made a decision early on that we were going to do this ourselves. But every year we have that conversation, is now the time to get funding? We're seeing really positive growth, so it could be a good time to get funding, but equally we're kind of growing organically. So we often have these conversations, should we, shouldn't we? But yeah, it's all self-funded.
And what about, you haven't tried for any grants?
I have tried actually, but I haven't received any grants.
Right.
I don't know why. I think it's very competitive to get grants. So yeah, we haven't unfortunately had any of those.
Yes. I did a podcast with Madonna Melrose of Melrose International, and her business is helping businesses like yourself source grants. So I'll connect you with Madonna if you want, and
Yes, please.
at least have a bit of a chat with her.
Yeah, put a good word in for us because we're so purpose driven, and we've got this mission. I'd love to chat. Yeah, it sounds great. Thank you.
Yes. And as she said, there's so many thousands of grants out there, both, local government out to federal, and so one it's navigating through all that. So yeah, I'll connect you after this.
Yeah, thank you.
So if you start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
Yes. I think this industry is amazing. I love tech. I love looking at ways to automate businesses, using AI. There's so many interesting things happening. So absolutely would go back into it. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And can you outline the most stressful point so far in your small business journey?
What's one of the most stressful? So I would say when I came back from mat leave. So as I said, with Eva, my first, I didn't have any mat leave because I was launching this business. When I got pregnant with Rafi a couple of years ago, I was like, I'm going to take 5 months off. And the business was in a really good spot, right? We'd done all these launches. We launched all over Australia. And I was like, I'm going to take some time off. And in that time, or just before, we'd hired a full-time programmer from New Zealand. And she was amazing. Absolutely loved her. But she was an expensive investment for the organization. So I went off on mat leave, had this lovely time with Rafi, my little one, and was like, everything's great. Came back and the membership and platform and everything was struggling because we weren't doing those launches. And as you know, with a membership, we have obviously churn rate and things were going wrong. And I didn't have any full-time team members. So I'd been a little bit frivolous in leaving the sort of company, but I really wanted that time with my son. So I came back and unfortunately I had to make a really hard decision to let this programmer go. I had to, we couldn't afford to keep her anymore. And it was probably one of the most stressful times I've ever had in my business because I think what I failed to do was read Xero correctly. And so if anyone else uses Stripe, you'll know that what Stripe says is your recurring revenue isn't what lands in your account every month. And I learned this the hard way because I was like, we're making I think at the time it was 17 grand a month or something, 16 or 17. And I was like, this is great. I can afford to take this time off. It's not what landed in our bank accounts. You've got Stripe fees, you've got churn rates, you've got failed payments. And so I think that was a massive mistake on my behalf because I wasn't across the numbers. And so unfortunately we had to let this wonderful person go. And I kind of spiraled a little bit and I had a few sort of panic attacks along the way. And I felt really gutted that I'd had to let this person go. So when I came back, I probably spent about 12 months of clawing back the business. We had to go on a payment plan with the ATO because we owed all this money and I hadn't been across the numbers and I felt like such a failure. But I'm very determined. This is why I have a business still. So I was like, I am driven by this mission. I don't want to let this get in the way of, what we're building. Mm. And so I clawed my way back. I had to cut everybody's hours back, all our contractors. I had to do so much work myself, but then we sort of learned so much from that. I sorted out my finances. I got in touch with a great accountant. I'm so clear on our revenue now, what's coming in and out of the business. And I'm so careful with our money now because I learned the hard way. We were probably about 2 months from going under, I'd say.
Yeah, right.
So that was definitely the most stressful. I have lots of other ones, but that was, for me, that was the biggest kind of change. And I think I needed to go through that. I think I did.
Yeah, I suppose sometimes you do. It's all part of the learning curve, right? And I guess with hindsight, what would you have done differently?
I think I would have, I wish someone had told me about Stripe, and I wish I'd spoken to someone who ran a recurring sort of SaaS product or membership who could sort of say to me, look, don't look at Stripe because it's really just an indication of revenue, but it's not what lands in your account. So I think any business owner out there, needs to be the one reconciling their own businesses, especially at the start, because you need to understand what's going in and out, what the fees are, what the churn rate is, and actually factor that into your revenue growth for the next year. Because otherwise you're kind of living in la la land. You're just like, oh yeah, it looks all great. It's not great. So I think now that's something I'm really careful with and across much more than have been.
Yep. Know your numbers as a business owner.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
I'd probably say the tech platform itself. And I think that's because that's not my natural skill. Obviously, that's why I have a tech co-founder, but it's so integral to the business for it to grow. So we've invested, as I said, lots of money into building that. And we've had to do it slowly but surely over the years, and we've tested everything. And I think for us, we've had many iterations and small things we've rolled out, and we've had to be careful with what we do. And we're always asking our members, is this better? What do you need? What problems are we solving? If we had loads of funding, we'd have probably just rolled out a platform that didn't actually work or wasn't needed. But because we haven't had funding, we've had to be really careful and creative in what we've built based on what people need from us. So I think that's where we've had to sort of add the most value, is through the actual tech, because we've got 700 customers now using the platform every day. And so, we need that tech to work, and we need those automations to be in place. So I think really that's the value of the community now. Yeah.
Yeah, great. And what have you enjoyed the least about managing growth so far?
For me, I'm quite impatient. I want the platform to be what I envisage it now. And so I've actually had to learn to be okay with having slower growth, because it hasn't been fast growth for sure. So I've had to kind of be okay with seeing, the project grow slowly but surely over time, and work on my sort of patience and being thankful that we are getting there. But I have a big vision. So I want this to be a global mentoring platform with women all over the world contributing and being part of it. But that doesn't happen overnight. And this platform has to be robust in order for us to scale, globally. So yeah, I'd say patience is something I've had to learn to have.
Yeah, it's I guess it's sort of baby steps, and making sure you're controlling the growth. That's the main thing. But I love that big, hairy, audacious goal of yours. That's great. So what do you love most about growing a small business?
I like that I don't have to answer to anyone else. My old boss, and I'm like, well, I don't have to answer to you anymore. I love that. I love that I can if it's a nice day, I go to the beach. I love that I can always pick up my kids and drop them off. I don't have to answer to anybody, and I can work the hours that I want. And I guess for me, it's a passion project that's turned into a business. So yeah, I feel very lucky.
What's been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business journey growth?
Thinking bigger. When I first started, it was a Melbourne meetup. And when I built the platform, first MVP, I was like, God, we could never scale this, to different countries, because it's all about the meetups. And then I realized that I was thinking very small, and actually what are the big problems that we're trying to solve? And that is around, connection and support, and diversity of thought, and And when I started to think bigger about the problems we were solving, that's when the platform started to evolve. And this idea came around for, sharing knowledge with women all over the world, really. And I guess COVID was a big part of that too, because once COVID hit, people were happy to jump online and talk to each other. And so as soon as that happened, I think there was this shift for me where I was like, oh, okay. So this idea of the mentor hour doesn't have to be in person. It can be online. And the more I started to think about it, the more creative I became and the more sort of passionate about this project that I became. So I think that was a big shift at the start, going from sort of a local community meetup into this now scaling tech platform. So yeah, it's been a learning curve, but.
Yep, you're on the journey.
I'm on the journey. I'm doing it.
Yes, exactly. And what's the number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
So for me, it's probably time blocking. So I use ClickUp as a project management tool. And if you had a look at it now, you'd see my whole day mapped out and it is literally time blocked. So I think women particularly wear all hats and we're having to be everything to everyone. And so I'll literally have 8 a.m. drop either at Kinder, 9 till 11, the podcast with you, 11 till 12, Facebook ads, 12 till 1, check emails, those types of things. So I have clear boundaries around my days. And certain things, like I won't check my email until lunchtime, because the morning for me is my strategy, is my big thinking. And so I don't let any distractions come in. Slack notifications are off. Every morning is my time to work on the sort of vision of the business. And then I'm allowed to look at notifications and Instagram and all of those things that are blowing up and distracting. So for me, I think the biggest thing I would say to small business owners and other people is that you have to build those habits into your day and that structure so that you don't get derailed by everything, because you can so easily do that when you're, growing a business.
Yeah.
And that's been really, really great for me.
No, I think that habit you talked about is so powerful if you can have the discipline to execute on it, and you can just be more effective in your day, right?
Yeah. And I literally need to switch hats because I'm doing so many different things. So I kind of it's almost like they're like meetings with myself. I have those 2 hours to say, do the financials for the month. And then I go make myself a cup of tea and I sit down, and now I'm doing lead generation or Facebook ads, or I'm having a meeting with a corporate. So I'm literally popping on different hats. So I kind of need to do that. Otherwise I would go insane trying to manage everything.
Yes, absolutely.
Jump over to growasmallbusiness.com and leave your details to get a short 2-minute email I send on Fridays to help small business owners like you become better leaders. I include some reading or professional development resources I've discovered in the last week.
Can you talk about how you've added people to the team? Now, I know you've got your team is made up of contractors at the minute. That might change as you grow. But is there any sort of tips, some win mistakes or advice for those listening?
Yeah, definitely. When we've interviewed people for different roles, for me, it's always been around the values of that person and whether they align to the values of the organization. So yes, they might have skills and experience from different, companies. But for me, skills can be trained. Everything we do in this membership can be trained, but attitude, personality can't be. So when we interview, yes, we have the can you do this tick box kind of thing. But then for me, it's what lights you up? What's your passion? What experiences have you had that's fueled, where you are today and shaped who you are? And I let them talk, and I'm listening and I'm making notes, and I'm thinking, yeah, okay, so they're driven by, helping others, for example. Connection and support is important to them. And I start to form an understanding of who they are as people. Because when we've hired, because we're a startup, we don't pay very much. We don't pay a lot of money. So we're not competitive in that sense. But people join because they love the mission. So if you can get them on board with you in the journey early on and kind of explain what we're doing here, it means that if you see them getting, lit up and they're like, oh my God, I love the sound of this and I want to be part of the team. And you see that energy, that for me is she's a keeper. So yeah, it's very much for me about those values and crafting questions so that we can determine kind of who they are as a person. And actually the contractors I've had have been with me literally since the start, which I think is testament to getting people on board with a mission that is aligned with their values. So
yeah, absolutely. And I guess that demonstrates it's working, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. What are some things you'd recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with growth?
Again, I think it comes down to the values. When someone on boards, I'm talking to them about the mission. And I think for me, and sort of what I've sort of learned through SheMentors, is that people want to feel valued and they want to feel heard. So when you're having meetings with your team, it's really important to make sure that there is that psychological safety so that people can like put their hand up and say, no, I don't think that's a good idea. Or yes, maybe that could work. Why don't we try this? And everybody gets an opportunity to speak and be heard. That for me is really important because that's part of SheMentors actually, is being able to be heard. But so many women say to me that they feel nervous about speaking up in meetings for fear of being judged. So we have all these incredible women who are sitting back, not saying anything and not putting great ideas forward because they have that fear. And so with SheMentors, for us, it's about like, how do we acknowledge the team and how do we bring diverse perspectives, to the table? And how do we listen and acknowledge and understand each other and let people have their own projects that they're running with? They come to me with ideas and it's like, yeah, okay, let's try it. That for me, I think is part of building a really strong team culture. And we're only small, so we're able to do that. Ask me again in a few years when we've got 20, 30 employees, maybe you can't do that. But yeah, I think the key is helping them feel heard and valued.
You can absolutely do it. Doesn't matter what size, but I think you got to be very focused on it, and essentially have a bit of a system and a process around it.
Mm.
So tell our audience how you've handled sort of the balance between work and life and 2 young children and everything that goes on in your life.
Yes, it's very hard. I'm not going to dress it up. It's very, very hard. I'm a bit of a workaholic. So as I said, I need those boundaries, which I put in place with the time blocking. But when I had Eva and Raf, I kind of sat down with my partner and said, look, we need this to work 50-50. So we need to split domestic duties and caregiving 50-50 in order for this to be, in order for this to work. And I'm really lucky that I have a really supportive partner. So he does drop off, I do pick up. We split the cooking, we plan out our weeks. When I was on mat leave, he worked from home and he took time as well to help me so I could do the business. So I think that's been the biggest thing, is like having conversations with your partner so that it doesn't all fall on one person, because no one person can handle the amount of washing that kids create. It's just non-stop. And so we do struggle. We don't have a perfect life in any regard, but we do support each other with that. And that's been the biggest thing, I think, especially for women. You need that support at home in order for you to be successful in your career or your business. And so having that is important. And I kind of think that's really helped me find that balance.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. So it's an important partnership.
Yeah. So important.
How much professional development have you invested in yourself?
Well, to be honest, up until I started SheMentors, I didn't really have any professional development in my organizations, hence why I started SheMentors. So I invest in my professional development on the platform. So I'm booking time with mentors every month myself. So I give back on the platform, but I also book time with mentors in all areas of my life and business. And so, I've talked to people about sales, about public speaking, about Xero and finance, because obviously I messed that up earlier in the business. So it's constant, really. Every month I'm booking time, and it's so important to invest in your professional development. And I guess that's why people come to SheMentors as well, because they don't get it in their careers or businesses. And where else, if you're a business owner, where else can you tap into a network and meet people from all over in different industries and networks, and know that you can book an hour with that person and kind of pick their brain and share knowledge? It's really hard to find women that are available for that. So the professional development has come around through my own platform.
Yeah.
So that's handy.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. And like one of the questions is, have you got mentors and coaches? Obviously, got plenty of mentors throughout your business and platform, which is awesome. And mentors and coaches is so important for small business owners. And so I love your business and what you do. What about sort of coaches? Have you had any of those to date?
Yeah, I do. And I think there's a real need for coaches as well. So you have this informal mentoring and knowledge sharing, but then coaches are great for that consistent, getting you from A to B, and helping you grow. So yeah, I've had coaches, again, through the SheMentors platform. I think what's interesting about the platform is that, and what you probably see from interviewing people on this podcast, is that there's just no set way to do something. There's no clear path. If there was a set way, everyone would be successful in business, but there's not. And so I think I really enjoy the platform because you get to talk to people and be like, how did you get there? What were the twists and turns in your journey that got you to this place? And they tell you, and inevitably there'll be things in that conversation that stay with you and that you learn from. Not everything, but there'll be little things that sort of spark ideas and, okay, so how's someone else doing this in a different industry? So it's really powerful, I think, to speak to lots of different people on their respective journeys. And there's lots of stats around like diversity of thought has been proven to breed creativity and drive innovation. So for me, it is really about that diverse perspectives and like tapping into different individuals on the platform. I think it's really, really powerful.
Yeah, that's right. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in, you can always pick up something that you can adapt to your business and industry. And I think, the networking piece as well is so important, and for small business owners to sort of make that a focus. Because again, the same thing, you meet new people, you just never know where those meetings and sort of nurturing those relationships might lead.
Oh, totally. Like we see our community working with each other, collaborating, hiring each other for jobs, going out for coffees and wines as friends. Because you're right, everyone you meet, there's that saying, opens a new door. And it's true because like every single person you meet has their own network. And if you have a good relationship with that person and you get to know them, in depth, which the mentor hour does actually allow for, it's not superficial conversations. It's actually like, an hour chat with someone. They're going to remember you and they're going to refer you for work and they're going to think about you. So it's a really important thing for everybody, I think, to build that network and community because it inevitably will help you as you grow.
Absolutely. Do you have a board of directors or advisors?
No, we don't. So me and my tech co-founder, the directors, we have an informal advisor, a couple of informal advisors, yeah, but no one sort of official.
So we've got our final 5 questions, Ali. So what do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
Managing cash flow.
Yeah, never easy, and especially as you're bootstrapping, it can be day to day. But I think you got some good discipline that you've learned from experience, as you said. So at least you're on top of it. And what about your favourite business book? Which has helped you the most?
It's Scaling Up by Vern Harnish, which I have here.
Yeah, very good book.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't think I'm quite at the stage he is at with working with businesses, but it's amazing to sort of set you up for success.
Yeah, I met Vern many years ago and been to a few of his conferences way back. So, good to get.
Yeah, I'd love to meet him. It's great.
Yeah. Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
I listened to your podcast. So when you reached out to me, I was like, yes, this is amazing. Because I listen. I think it's great. I also listened to the SaaS podcast with Omar Khan and Stephen Bartlett's Diary of a CEO. It's quite good as well.
Yeah, that's a good one. And one tool you'd recommend to help growing small business?
I would say ClickUp, just project management and assigning tasks. And when you've got lots of team, I think it's really important to, get granular with that.
Yeah, no, good one. And finally, what would you tell yourself on day one of starting out?
I would say you have everything inside you that you need to succeed. Don't let anyone tell you can't do it. Go for it.
Yep. No, good way to close. Really appreciate the chat and some great sort of insights into your business and what you're doing, and you're doing some great stuff for females around Australia and New Zealand, and hopefully sooner rather than later around the globe. So, I mean, great to meet you, great to chat, and hopefully see you again someday.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. And if anyone wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, I would love to chat with them. So I'm Adey on LinkedIn. Yeah. And you can find us SheMentors across on Instagram, on LinkedIn. And if you want to join the membership, you should definitely come and join. It's at shementors.com.au.
Fantastic. And we'll put those in the show notes as well. So
amazing.
Thanks, Ab.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's it. Thanks for listening. Please leave a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. It means more small business owners will find our cast and help people with their business growth journey.